So it's the first non-Saban spring practice day. What was different?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey again, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. And I'm going to tell you how you can get one of those cool new Nissans here in just a little bit. Thank you for making this your first listen. Jimmy, first non-Saban spring practice in many a year.
17. I know this. I know the number. 17.
I've had several children since Nick Saban was our coach. 3 to be exact. But, and there were some different things. First of all, you and I were talking off air. The biggest change was music, oddly enough.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the change that would get most people's attention just because everything else is just sort of football details, but having music at practice, before people, have some sort of visceral reaction to that or a visceral negative reaction, you need to understand that the entire NFL practices with music. I mean, and has for years. This isn't new, for years. As a matter of fact, I even went back and looked just because I knew this would come up a lot today on the boards and on the show. But NFL, I think I read half of the NFL teams were practicing with music in 2014. I mean, that's how long this has been going on. I think a lot of people watch Hard Knocks on HBO. Most practices with music. The Dolphins are on in-season Hard Knocks. They practice with music. Every team does a little different. I'm not sure Alabama's doing it, but that's a difference. And I think it speaks to maybe things. I don't want to use the term laid back because that's not a good football term, and that's not a good description of what's going on. Because actually here, the practice was pretty intense, and that it was very fast-paced and very organized. So fast-paced is what I heard the most. I mean, in terms of different, that's one phrase that's out there. So fast paced with music, but it was good. And, where you can learn the most about what happened in practice is Kalen DeBoer's press conference. He's not a guy, I think, that holds a lot of things back. I think he answers the questions that are asked. And you can tell he was pretty pleased with how day one went. And he should, because here's a word that we won't be using much in the future, Luke, but I think we should use it a lot, particularly this year, and that's Saban bots. DeBoer has the privilege right now of coaching a lot of Saban bots, and those kids, they love to practice.
You heard it here first, folks. Jimmy Stein is saying Nick Saban was antiquated and needed to be pushed out in favor of a new regime. No, that's not what you said. But I think that, you're right. And you'll back me up here. I've been saying all along that eventually whoever takes over for Saban is going to have to be different from Saban because you can't be Saban because there's only one Saban. And I think DeBoer is just different enough so far. You got to be, if you're DeBoer, you got to be kind of happy that, you come to Alabama and, you're following a legend. I mean, the legend. But you've been at Washington where you had some good talent, but you come to Alabama and you got dudes stacked on top of dudes, like that scene from True Detective Night Country. You've just got a ball of dudes.
Exactly like that. That's a perfect analogy because I'm sure it looks exactly like that.
By the way, that ended kind of disappointingly for me, but so he's got to be feeling like, oh man, I've just walked into a garage with all these custom cars that I can drive. Like this is, I get to play with all these toys. And I think that, some of the questions that were asked of him, like somebody asked something about Jalen Milroe and the quarterback situation. And he handled it in a very honest yet open way. Where he said
differently than Saban would have answered that.
Differently. And look, again, I'm the biggest Saban fan. I'm a Saban bot myself. I always said, what was that Nick Saban said on 60 Minutes one time, that successful people don't like mediocre people and mediocre don't like successful people. And I said, he's wrong about that second part because I love him. And I couldn't get any more mediocre. So I love me some Nick Saban. But, it is a little – it's different, and I can embrace this. Because I embrace this doesn't mean I didn't like the way Saban did it. The way Saban did it was perfect and awesome and fantastic. The way DeBoer is going to do it is different, but it can also be great. And so far, I think DeBoer is doing pretty well. I mean, when you couple this with the fact that he just flipped Antonio Coleman back, he also signed Noah Carter and he signed Ryan Williams. Hey, all of a sudden, I mean, if you weren't on the DeBoer train, you should at least be at the station looking at the schedule.
Yeah, and Zion Grady is returning to campus Friday. Not saying that that's on flip, that he's going to recommit or anything of that. He may, but I don't know that it would be this soon. But Zion Grady is coming back to campus too. That's another decommitment that DeBoer is working on reeling back in, and he'll be here at the Friday practice. I thought the Milroe thing is another. I'd put it on a short list. I'm working on a list right now of like, okay, what did we learn from day one? What have we learned? And obviously that list isn't going to be too long because we only got a short video and some photos and some whispers that we hear, and then the music. And but I thought that his Milroe answer was interesting simply because there's a small number of Alabama fans out there, a small number. And I read all those posts and comments in the off season, a small number that felt that DeBoer would watch practice film or would watch Alabama's tape from 2023 and Milroe wouldn't be number one, that they would all start out even, 0. Well, you don't all start out even. Players that have been playing starting are going to start out with the ones. And you do have to practice in that way. There's no other football way to do it. You have ones and you twos and threes. And I've watched multiple Alabama staffs practice now, even going pre-Saban. And this is just the way it's done. I mean, there's ones and twos and threes, and that's how you practice when you do 11-on-11 work. There has to be, and you don't want to mismatch or mismosh because you do want to develop chemistry and have the same guys playing with the same guys in general. So let me give you a good example. It appeared from photos that James Brockermeyer was the first team center and not Parker Brownsford. How much should we read into that? Zero. If you're reading into that, you're not getting it. I mean, it doesn't mean a thing. It only means that James Brockermeyer's been here for 3 years on that practice field, and Parker just got here. I think we all know who's likely to win that battle as it progresses throughout spring and into fall camp. I think that's not going to be a surprise, but you have to start out a certain way. So Milroe started out with the ones per Kalen DeBoer.
Parker had to ask Brockermeyer directions to the practice facility. So, I mean, it's day one, so I'm with you. Don't read too much into that. I want to talk a little bit this is fun for me too, and it's not super informative, but about some of the number changes and also about some of the changes that are coming in terms of communications. But, of course, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel, get your buckets on your first bet with America's #1 sports book. Yeah, FanDuel.com/locked-on. Right now, new customers, they get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's because right now, new customers get $150. Right, like I said, that's with any winning $5 bet. You can't beat it with a stick. You can beat an egg. You can beat a bush. You can't beat this deal. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets or live same-game parlays, which are awesome, or exclusive props with players or teams or whatever. That's a lot of fun. The Brandon Miller side of it's always a lot of fun. He was Rookie of the Month again. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on, FanDuel.com/locked-on, and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of NBA. So let's start with the communications thing, Jimmy, because at first when I heard about this, now there are going to be some rules like, okay, so the communications will be on until 15 seconds left, I think, in the play clock, and then they are cut off. Now, how are you going to monitor all this what if you're in the hurry up mode? I don't know how all that works. Maybe you do, and you can explain in a minute, but I had this vision in my head before I learned about that part where DeBoer or Sheridan says to Jalen Milroe, okay, run a post and, and a curl and a blank and a blank. And then the defense switches at the last second and they're on comms going, no, scratch that. You just take off running. I sort of had that vision in my head, but it's still what it means is the quarterback's still going to have a firm grasp of the offense. Just because they have communications, it doesn't mean that the defense, because I'm guessing the defensive coordinators are going to say, okay, at 15 seconds, if they're not in hurry up or whatever, we know that they got to stop talking. So we're going to swap our defense right at 15 seconds. Now that's going to be hard to do. And, if you snap it at 15 seconds, then it makes it a moot point. But I'm saying, the defense will adjust to this somehow. And also, by the way, the defense will have communications with a linebacker, I believe.
Correct.
I think that's how this is going to work.
Yeah,
just
one player on the defense. And in the NFL, that's almost always the Mike. So Mike linebacker. So I'm sure that's going to be the case in college for, you don't want to say 100% of the time because somebody somewhere will want to do something different. But the norm will be the Mike linebacker as because he's responsible for the most players on the field. If you give it to somebody in the secondary, the guys up front may not be able to hear them and vice versa. It's someone in the middle of the field. So best chance they can be heard by people just to the front of them and people just behind them. There will also still be signals because there will always be signals. There's still signals in the NFL, for instance, where they've been using these communications for years. Signals meaning a variety of things for a variety of situations. I'm not sure how it's monitored, but I'm sure that it will be because even Kalen DeBoer said in his press conference, hey, this doesn't eliminate the idea that sign stealing is still out there. Now you become paranoid that people are listening in on your communications. So, there's that. Coaches do get paranoid about such. What's interesting to me, Luke, is I think once all the coaches know what the communication rules are, the next thing they're going to do is have a big old meeting about how to use them to their advantage. Okay, here's the rules. What can we do to take advantage of the rules without breaking them? And that will be take up some meetings and some time, and then you adjust as the season starts. But I'm all for this. I know here's one thing people say. The college football is becoming like the NFL. I hate that. I get that, and I'm sort of waving the flag of not wanting college football to become the NFL. But the game itself, once the game kicks off, that's 60 minutes. I don't care that you make that like the NFL. The NFL is a very exciting brand of football that is the most popular sport on the globe. The NFL football is what 49 of the most 50-watch shows on TV in America, NFL games. So
that's insane, by the way.
It is crazy. But that's the point of I don't care that once the game kicks off, it looks a lot like the NFL because the NFL is an exciting brand of football. And I think the NFL is what it is because they've created a game that caters to the fans that are watching, particularly at home and to some extent in person. They've catered the game to fans. So that includes the communications with the quarterback and the defense. So I'm all for this and using tablets on the sideline as a way to end the days of the grease board. It's jumping into the 20th century. And I think all that stuff's overdue. I don't even mind the 2-minute warning. People are like, oh, that's more commercials. Yeah, but it's also an extra timeout for everybody to get on the same page. It's really just a timeout.
Here's what I hate, Jimmy. And I said we were going to talk about the numbers thing. We may not have time, so I'm just going to tell you that I think it's cool. Deontay Lawson's going to 0. Jihad Campbell's changing his number. Jamarian
11.
Latham, I think, is number 20. And so is Daniel Hill. And I think you could make the argument, hey, which one is bigger? Because Daniel Hill is a huge human being. But the thing about the 2-minute warning, okay, again, if we're going to NFLize this thing, then what we need to do is get rid of some of these programs that don't matter. I'm sorry, you know who you are. You know who you are. They're literally probably, they're probably only 15 to 20 teams that can win a national championship right now. And that may be high. And they're probably only about 40 to 50 teams that are truly relevant. But the cutoff would probably be around 64 teams, which makes some sense. It's a nice round number that we're all familiar with. But we need to get rid of some of these other teams if we're going to NFLize this thing, because we're trying to make it where there's just more parity and there's more of this and there's more of that. And, as Nick Saban said at that Saban Legacy Awards I went to, the NFL wants everybody to be 9-9 or I guess now it'd be 9-8 or whatever. They're trying to go to 18 games, but they want everybody to be that. And I don't, me personally, maybe you do out there, maybe you do. I like having people with targets on their backs. I like it when teams are there's some super teams, and then there's some teams that are pretty good that are on the cusp, but not quite as good. And then a bunch of has-beens. I sort of dig having a has-been game every now and again. In the NFL, we talk about the SEC being a grind. Hey, at least you get a Vandy every now and again. At least you get, and then somebody else is going to stink too, by the way. Whether it be Mississippi State, Kentucky, South Carolina, they're going to have some losing record. I know they're all better right now. But regardless, if we're going to NFLize this thing, let's just get rid of some of these other teams. And, it is all about the money. Because we are commercializing this thing so much that it really is taking away the pageantry, the tradition, the history. Now, the NFL would argue, hey, we're making as much money as we can, and we couldn't get any more commercialized if we were a giant commercial. And that's true, but the NFL is different, and they only have 32 teams. They're also all in huge markets. College football isn't that way. Tuscaloosa is not a huge market. Auburn, Alabama is not a huge market. Baton Rouge, Louisiana is not a huge market. So I don't know. It's like, to me, it's like the TV timeouts in college basketball. I hate them. There's part of me that's like, okay, it gives everybody a little rest in there, but we only do that for TV money. When the rules are changed for TV, it affects the sport. And when you put a 2-minute warning in, it's an arbitrary thing. The only reason it's in there is to create drama, to give somebody a chance to come back. And it's like the SEC or any of these conference tournaments in basketball. It's only there. Well, it's only there for money. But the second reason is to give all these teams that stunk all year a chance to still get in the big dance.
Well, what about the NBA? When you inbound in the NBA, the rule about inbounding in the NBA, you don't even have to bring it all up the link. When the game's really going to be decided at the end, you get to inbound it, on that side of the floor where it's created for drama. It's manufactured drama. But guess what? It's drama. It's great. Yeah. It's great. So, the game's going to be fine. I'm just excited that we're on the practice field, that there were video. So interesting, on the video itself at the end of practice, or at the end of the video, I should say, there's Malachi Moore appears to be picking off a ball intended for brand new tight end Josh Cuevas. And Malachi's picking it off and running back. I thought that was interesting video. Interesting photo from Courtney Morgan, Alabama's general manager, was the first to throw a photo out there. And it appeared, who knows, these things aren't captioned, but it appeared to be the number 2s that were out there, because Ty Simpson was a quarterback and Justice Haynes was at running back, and Naquil Bertrand and Wilkin Formby were at tackle, sort of the guys you'd expect to be 2s, right now. And then on defense, Quay Rousseau and Jordan Renaud were at those outside linebacker spots. So that was a good look at Bandit, which is a new position because Jordan Renaud was not an outside linebacker in the last regime, but he is now a Bandit, which is an outside linebacker position, all coached by Christian Robinson. And it looked to me like Renaud was at Bandit and Quay Russaw was at Wolf with 2 defensive tackles in between them. You couldn't tell who they were, but since they were twos, I don't know, maybe Damon Payne and James Smith, just guesses.
All right, Jimmy, when we come back, it's time to talk a little bit about this big game tonight for the Crimson Tide. But, of course, I want to tell you about Nissan. Go to nissanusa.com. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Here's the level you are. This is the next level. That's what Nissan will do for you. Look, the 2024 Nissan Rogue, for example. Look, it's a perfect for the city. It's perfect for drives in the city. It's perfect for great escapes, whatever you want. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch high-definition touchscreen infotainment system. Then you got the Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity and advanced capable 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. All you got to do is go to shop Nissan USA or NissanUSA.com. They just repossessed my Nissan.
You already got your Nissan?
Yeah, they
still waiting on mine.
So they
Not sure I got my last Built Bars either.
Well, I told them you wanted the Built Bars. I'll get the Nissan. All right. So tonight, Bama's got Florida. Okay. Look, there is still a chance here. It's an outside chance, but it's not as outside as you think that Alabama could end up in the 5 spot. And what that would mean is Alabama loses tonight, beats Arkansas, Auburn wins both its games, Kentucky wins both its games, and Tennessee loses both its games. That's not insane to think that happens. So, and I think South Carolina has to beat Tennessee, lose to Mississippi State. So tonight is big. And I'll tell you, Jimmy, I have been of the opinion we're going to get blistered tonight. I've been thinking that regardless of what happened against Tennessee, I thought that beforehand because, number one, we don't play very well in good road venues, apparently. And number two, I'm not sure if Latrell Wright's still going to be back. And we obviously need him back.
Okay.
And number three, I feel like we might be a little emotionally drained from Saturday. And it's, it's a quick turnaround. You head to Gainesville, whatever. But I'm changing my tune a hair. And here's why. Why is the spread only Florida 1.5?
Yeah. I was surprised me. I thought it would be 4. I thought it would be like 4,
I thought it'd be
maybe
6.
more. Yeah. That surprised me. But I don't read too deeply into stuff. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm wrong for not reading deeply into it, but I don't. I did expect Florida to be favored. And I think Florida's going to win the game because good teams usually win at home. Usually is the word, though, not always. So Alabama's got a chance. Alabama's a good team. And here's why I want to win. I know we can look at the standings and the seedings and Joey Brackett's latest, guess as to the 68 teams. But I think we need to win the game just because what a confidence boost. You want to be playing your best basketball in the postseason. There's 2 games left. So I think you need to go into the postseason feeling really good about yourself. I don't think beating Arkansas at home is going to make this team feel really good about itself because they're going to be big favorites at home to beat Arkansas. So I want to win the game just because I want this team believing they can beat anyone, anywhere. And you have to beat Florida to do that. Now, I don't think losing to Florida means I'm going to change how I feel about this team or how I feel about their chances in March. Because again, I'm not sure who, if anyone in the SEC would win tonight, including Tennessee at Florida. I don't know. I like Florida's chances at home against basically anybody, but it would be a big confidence boost. And I do think the way the team played in the last 6 or 8 minutes against Tennessee, they need to kind of shake that off. Maybe they're also due for one of those blistering hot shooting nights. And when that happens, Alabama can beat anybody. So maybe tonight's that night where everything that goes up goes in, and they're sort of due for that.
I mean, they are due for it. But again, I think at this point in the year, you sort of are what you are.
Yep.
And I mean, we have a huge sample size at this point, and I want to be very wrong. But I'm telling you, I see Florida winning this game by double digits because Alabama's played 3 good teams on the road in the SEC and lost to all of them by double digits. They played some mediocre teams on the road and they beat them.
And won. That's what I'm saying. I think anybody just blanket says Alabama doesn't play on the road didn't watch the whole season. Alabama won games on the road and even beat. I mean, Ole Miss isn't a bad team at all. Ole Miss almost made the NCAA tournament. They're certainly in the NIT. They're certainly not a bad team. They were winning 20 games. They beat good teams on the road. What they haven't done is beat a really good team on the road. As a matter of fact, usually they've gotten blown out when they played a really good team on the road. So I guess ultimately, Luke, the question is this: is Florida good or really good? Because I think they can beat a good team on the road. I don't know that they can beat a really good team on the road, but at the same token, who does regularly beat really good teams on the road? Nobody. So is Florida really good? You can make a case. You can make the case they're really good.
And Florida needs this game more than we do. I mean, we need it to stay in the SEC race, which I've given up on. We need it, but we need it for the double bye too. Because if we get this, we're going to get the double bye. So we need it, but Florida needs it, I think, in the sense of they can really change their seeding with this win. I think this could knock them up a seed and a half. Now, like, how do you get them knocked up a half seed? Well, I'm saying if you're teetering on what they should be, you would favor the higher seed versus the lower seed. So anyway, we hope we're wrong. We hope we're wrong. I promise you. But I feel like Alabama's going to take it.
I think you're probably not going to win tonight, but just because it's really hard to beat good teams on the road. And Connecticut, Houston, I think those might be the 2 best teams. I wouldn't want to bet on Connecticut or Houston winning tonight at Florida either. I wouldn't want to.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that. All right. That's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.